Welcome to Pep Talk and Pickleball, the podcast where we explore empty nest life, health, fitness, and nutrition, all with a side of pickleball fun. I'm your host, Jill Lewis, your guide through this exciting phase of life. As a certified faster way to fat loss coach and fellow empty nester, I'm here to share insights, interview experts, and yes, sprinkle in some pickleball talk. Join me for weekly doses of motivation and laughter as we navigate health, happiness, and pickleball passion. Grab your paddle, join the conversation, and let's dive into Pep Talk and Pickleball. Welcome back to Pep Talk and Pickleball. I'm your host, Jill Lewis, and I'm really excited. I have a returning guest this week. This is my friend, Sarah Cowart, War Eagle. Sarah.
War Eagle.
And Sarah, obviously, is from Auburn, Alabama, and she is an academic coach for college students. So you guys know that I'm an empty nester and that I have two out of college. I have one in college. I feel like, where was Sarah when I started this journey as a parent with my first going into college? Because all of her services are so needed. And I know you're going to love to hear what she has to say. So welcome back to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be back.
Yeah. So, okay, for those that haven't maybe heard, I think it was way back in season 1 when you were on the podcast, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an academic coach.
Yeah. So I own an academic coaching practice here in Auburn, Alabama. We also have another location in State College, Pennsylvania. And you're exactly right. We help college students. And we all know, you've been through it 3 times, that college is hard. The transition is hard. And we are finding more and more students are underprepared, not academically, so not the intellectual piece of it, but just all the other things that happen, the time management, struggling with priorities, study skills, strategies, all of that. And so that's what we do. We really help them formulate everything outside of the classroom. And that includes life skills too, because we know 5 to 10 years after they graduate, they're going to have a job. So how can we really equip them to be successful on all fronts? And so we have a team that work with our students one-on-one, either in person or virtually. So we actually can serve kids all over America.
That's amazing. I love that. So, and how did you get into it? How did you start this career?
Yeah, that's probably the longest story. I'll try to keep
Cliff notes. Yeah.
Cliff Notes version is my background is in education. So I was a former first grade teacher, and I was just like, I was trying to figure out what more there was. And so I went back to grad school and actually got my master's is in sport administration. I went to Belmont, and I really loved when I was there, I discovered this whole academic advisor role for college students. And that's where I landed. And I spent 12 years working at multiple Division I schools, working one-on-one with college students. And every time I would sit in a parent meeting for a recruiting visit, I would share with the parent, okay, when your kid comes in their first semester, they're going to meet with me weekly. We're going to go over this. We're tracking their grades. I would give them a step-by-step game plan, if you will, of like, here's how we're going to make sure your kid transitions well. And every single time a parent would say, gosh, I wish their older sibling had had somebody like you, because they're not an athlete. And so I think it's one of those things, you hear something so many times, you think, okay, who's going to do something about it? And then finally you realize, oh, I have to do something about it. And so I quit my job, sold my house. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, moved back to Auburn, and this is where we opened our first location. And that's just kind of how we got the ball rolling and saying, how do we help these kids transition well? How do we help them navigate college well so that they can really be successful on the other side?
Amazing. So first of all, I just want to say what you were talking about with kids that are doing sports and they're doing, the academics. It's so true. They have a dedicated person that is helping them so much figure out what classes and making sure they're getting into the right classes at the right time. And for the kids that aren't in athletics, it's definitely more on them. Now, those kids that are in athletics, they need that because they have practice schedules and what have you. So the academic advisors are trying to get them into classes that will allow them to participate in their sports. But for the rest of the kids out there, which are the majority, obviously, it is tough to manage your time. And I think even the kids that are on top of it all in high school, the type A kids that are in every extracurricular activity and they're getting straight A's, even those kids, I think, struggle when it comes to college and managing their time. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. I think there's a statistic out there that says 80% of college students say they were underprepared. And a lot of that comes to the point of everything is so structured for our kids when they're in high school. What time do they get to school? If they have practice, if they have a job, it's minute by minute, they know where they're supposed to be. And then they get to college and it's like, oh, I have a class at 10, then I have a class at 1. Well, this paper's due on Friday. And it's like, well, I'd rather go take a nap. I'm staying up later. So their sleep is different. There's all of these, just like the everything that's happening around them is so different. And as a parent, you're not there. And so
Exactly.
they're having to learn to navigate this on their own. And sometimes it's just like if they just had a little help, it would be just a little easier. Now, I'm not saying that it's like the end all be all solution because kids are going to fail, kids are going to lie. Like it happens. But it's how do we set them up so when they do fail, they bounce right back?
Right. So you're not in there tutoring them for their chemistry 101 class at all. You are helping them with their schedule, time management, and those type of life skills.
Yes. And so, no, we are not tutoring chemistry. Gosh, I could not even tell you the first thing. And that's what a lot of parents ask is like, what is the difference between tutoring and academic coaching? And tutoring, think of that as like that is the subject matter. So, someone is teaching that student the formulas of chemistry, the math problems and calculus, all of that. And we are saying, okay, let's help you navigate that better so your brain is ready to absorb all of that. So, it probably falls under this buzzword a lot of people are hearing now called executive functioning skills. And executive functioning skills are going to be that time management, prioritization, organization, study skills, all of that kind of stuff combined. And even kind of goes in with that motivation attitude. We find a lot of kids come to us. We spend probably the first semester working with them is building up their confidence because they don't feel confident anymore when they're now a freshman on campus. And sometimes these campuses are 30,000 people. And so a lot of that kind of combines. And so I always have to remind people, no, don't call me if you have a chemistry question. We do not know the answer, I promise you.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know. I told you before when we've talked about this, I look back on, my kids and their college experience. And I know one of my kids in particular really needed your help back then. And it wasn't that he's not a smart person. He's incredibly smart. It's just the organization of it all was overwhelming at 18, 19, 20. By the time he was a senior, he got it. But I mean, it was like, come on. But you can't, that's a really hard, like you said, in high school, from the time our kids enter school and I mean parents really have taken over. It's good and it's also a disservice to our kids that we have taken over their lives. We have them scheduled, like you said, from sun up to sundown and beyond. And so then we just expect them to thrive in an environment where they're not scheduled. And a lot of them I think, don't know how to study.
I would 100% agree with that. And I think a lot of this kind of ties into one of those skills we work on, which is problem solving. We find a lot of kids nowadays too, everything is at their fingertips. And so if it's like they can't one word search on Google, they're like, well, then I don't know. And they kind of give up. And so it's really kind of going back to and saying, okay, walk me through your decision making process, walk me through how you got there, and let's see if we can connect the dots. And a lot of that comes down to, okay, study skills. What are we doing in the classroom? Are you actually taking notes or are you just sitting and listening? Or it's an online class where the lectures are on videos and they're just let them play in the background while they're on their PlayStation or Xbox, right? So there's a lot of things we have to really kind of teach and navigate of the different ways to study because as we all remember in college, every professor teaches differently. So every semester, you're relearning these strategies because every semester you have different professors teaching in a different way. And you have to really teach yourself how to almost kind of weave and bob through it all so that you know what that professor is expecting of you during that one semester.
Totally. Tell me this. What's the typical advice that you give to students if they are struggling in class and, I know I'm sure you're telling them you need to have a conversation with your professor. But beyond that, like, how do they go about that? And what's your advice there?
Oh, that is our first question is how, like, if they come, say they're coming to one of their sessions and they're like, gosh, I'm just not getting this information, or I don't even know what he's talking about. Our first thing is, well, have you met with them? Does the professor know who you are? And if not, immediately we say, open your computer, let's schedule an appointment with them. Let's look at the syllabus. That's, the second piece of this is if you haven't met your professor, we have to go back and look at the syllabus and see all the information they provided because the syllabus literally is a roadmap for every single class. And I find a lot of kids don't look at that. And then, kind of, the second piece to that is diving in. Every student now has an online portal where all of their class information is put. And more professors are putting more and more information in there, but yet the kids aren't taking the time to go through and see what's available. So a lot of times it may be they're like, well, I don't understand this. Well, the professor may have put a worksheet in their online portal. They might have put some more notes, and it's almost going through that. And then we always tell them when you're going to meet with your professor, you have to have a single ask. You can't just go in and say, I don't understand. You have to go in with, I don't understand ABC, because then that allows the professor to know where to start to help you if you go to see like a TA or anything like that. That's the biggest piece. And I find a lot of kids, I don't know if they're like afraid to go talk to their professor or it's uncomfortable because then they're like asking for help, if you will. But we really try to encourage them that that's the first course of action.
Absolutely. And I think too, parents, you really don't have access to, or you shouldn't have access to your kid's portal and to the professor. I think that's like the worst thing that you could do. And that's what you have to let go of all of the grip that we have on our kids and their lives. So if you are trusting your kid to go away to college, or even if they're staying home at college, but if your child's going to college, like that's the point where you've got to back off and allow them to do this. I mean, you can encourage them, but man, what do you have to say about that? I'd be curious.
Oh, I have lots to say. This is my favorite subject of all time to talk to parents about. Number one thing, do not ever, ever, ever email your student's professor. If you there are different channels, and we understand there are emergencies, we understand there's something like that, but every university has a student center. I know here at Auburn particularly, they have Auburn Cares, and you can go through them. They will get in touch with the professor. But even on behalf of the kid, we've had a parent one time email just to tell the professor the student's turning the paper in late. Like, don't do that. Like that doesn't help your student at all. And then the second piece, I love you bringing up the fact of like, no, parents should not be logging into their students' online portal. A lot of universities will have a parent portal where then you can see like midterm grades and final grades. If your student allows you access to that, which most parents are like, oh yes, they will give me access. But as far as your students' online portal, the biggest piece of advice I can say is parents don't log in there because this is something that kids don't like to talk about. But on the back end, professors can actually see when they've logged in. They can see the IP address of where things are coming from. So if you're double checking on your student and you live in California and they live here in Alabama, it's going to show that kid was logged in California. Now that's going to be a red flag to that professor of honesty and integrity. So that's what my biggest thing is to say, like, just know there are things on the back end. Professors can see how long they were logged in watching a video. So
Interesting.
parents, yeah. So make sure that you really ensure, and that's the hardest part. That is the hardest part to let go of. And we get that. And that's why we're like, let us be the middleman. Like, we're going to make that student log into their student portal in front of us, and our kids, they know 100%. We'll see, like, what's the grade? And they'll say, oh, I made an 83, and immediately just whip around their computer because it's like, well, my eyes haven't seen it. So we want to see exactly what it is, because sometimes they tell us I made an 81 and it's really like a 78. So we like to see the actual truth that's on the paper.
So you have a resource, right? Don't you have a free
Yes.
resource for parents? I'd love for you to tell them about it because I think it's really
Yes.
interesting.
So we do have a free resource. It's called Worries to Wisdom, which I think is like the perfect opportunity for parents to go, okay, what do I need to know? And it is literally the top secrets of that every college parent should know. It's about communication. It's about the letting go. Like, what boundaries do you set when your kid goes off to school? How do you talk to them? How do you answer their questions? And so it kind of walks you through this whole dynamic of really trying to let them be an adult, but we all know they're still kids. And how do we kind of manage that letting go a little bit as they head off?
Yes, and I will put that link in the show notes today. So parents, especially if you've got a child that's for the first time going off to college, you'll definitely want to grab that. I think it's a nice resource to have for sure.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So it's like finals time, we're in the springtime. Tell me what's going on with your students. What's the advice you're giving them? How are you helping them through this
Yes, this
chaos?
is it is complete chaos. And the first word that always comes to my mind during this time of year is, well, actually two words. It's panic and overwhelm. And it's happens to everybody, even the kids who are the type A, who have the 4.0. They start it's everybody's a little on edge. Everybody's a little anxious. We see the end is near, but it's coming a lot faster than we expected. And it's always we I always joke in the last few weeks, I'm like, it's the final countdown. Like, I need to start playing that song over and over every
Yes.
time a student comes in the office. But it's truly about them reassuring them, you've already done all the work. At this point, you have done the work. So right now, it's about finishing strong. It's about taking what you know and being confident in that. And I think that's where a lot of times we're able to speak to these kids with motivation and saying, okay, you've already done this one time, especially in the spring semester. Most everybody has done this a few times. So let's look back and say, okay, what didn't work? What did work? And really formulate a plan over those last few weeks going into finals, and then also having a plan for finals week. I think a lot of kids just kind of like push that to the side because it's like, oh, I have a final on Monday and then I have a final on Thursday and I'm done. And we're like, okay, but what's the plan? Like
Hmm.
where are we going with that extra time? And hopefully, if they've been working with us, they're like, oh, here's what I'm gonna do. I have it all organized. That's usually our goal by the end of the term.
I love that because I look back and think on myself, and I'm still this way as an adult. I'm a bit of a procrastinator. When I was in college, I was a huge procrastinator. And I think, oh my gosh, what a better experience to go through it, having a plan, having deadlines set. But yes, there are deadlines set for yourself, but they still are having you and your team are holding them accountable. That has to be, I mean, that's like, who doesn't need that?
Oh gosh, I still need accountability in my
Yeah.
life. I
And I
mean,
think
like,
that's just a life skill. Like what a good life skill just to be able to, for time management and to not be a procrastinator. Oh my gosh.
well, and I mean, let's be honest. We have kids who, yes, we give them a whole list of things to do, and they come back the next week and we're like, oh my gosh, you didn't do any of them. But then we say, okay, well, then let's take that. Let's formulate a new plan because now it's do or die. We have to get this done. We gave you a little extra wiggle room. But then it's teaching them, okay, in those moments of time, how do we readjust? How do we reorganize? And really thinking about priorities like, what's up next? What do we need to really focus on?
So tell me about, you also have a new product that is like brand new to you and your team that sounds incredible as well. I'd love for you to tell my
Yes.
listeners about it.
So we are super excited to launch the Collegiate Academic Planner. And this is probably my brainchild of the last 5 years of every single student who comes through our door of saying, oh, I wish I had had. Or we send them out and we say, hey, go buy a planner. And they come back and we're like, wait, we don't have a space to write down exactly what we're doing in here. And we're always having to navigate against other things. So we said, well, why don't we just make our own? Why don't we make our own planner that's specifically for college students and it runs on the academic year? So starting August 1, 2024 to July, 31st, 2025. And it's built off of semesters. So there's a fall semester and a spring semester. And each semester, it walks them step by step. So it's like, first of the semester, here's your checklist. Here's everything you need to do before classes start. Then midterm. Hey, have you done all of these things? There's a midterm checklist. It even has a section in there of, hey, it's time for registration. Have you talked to your advisor? Do you have any holds? Like all of those type of questions that college kids need to be asked, but maybe they don't need our one-on-one services. Maybe it's something where they're pretty good at the everyday things, but they straggle a little bit. And so really being able to put everything in one place that they can carry around. We have physical versions, we have digital versions. We even have like just a weekly notepad that walks them through some of these strategies, but it's truly built off of our academic coaching strategies. And it's just put in paper so that we can get it out to all college students and it actually makes their lives a little easier.
That is going to be awesome. So when is this launching?
Yes, so it's launching middle of May. And so we are super excited to have that. We are shipping out of my home. So it will come directly from Auburn, Alabama to wherever you are. And then we also have those digital versions too, because we know a lot of students love to use their iPad and especially a couple of different note taking apps. And so we have made those so they can be interactive with that as well.
Oh, that's really cool. And then I'm just immediately I'm like, this would be such a great high school graduation gift.
100%. That is like we would love for all of our graduating high school seniors as they come into college to have a resource that is built for them to help them in that transition. Because it truly does it's literally a step-by-step playbook of how do you navigate this. And it even has in the back of
Wow.
like how to email a professor, how do you like navigate an
Mhm.
online classroom, how do you calculate your GPA. So it's just giving them basically anything in my head where they don't have a person with them is just in the planner.
Sarah, that is going to be, that's the coolest thing. And oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about all the gifts over the years that, it's so hard. You try to buy a good high school graduation gift, but this one is like
Mhm.
amazing. And the cool thing too, there are ones that you've got like a navy ones, you've got lighter colors. So for boys and girls, it's not like this
Yes.
is just like foo-fooey girl thing.
No. Yeah, and that's the thing. We definitely have just a plain Jane navy blue cover, and then we have a almost I would say a more feminine
Mhm.
vibe, like an orangey peaky one. But then of course with our digital version, you know, I had we was talking to a couple of college students and they are members of sororities and they're like, how cool would it be if we had like a digital version with our sorority cover on it? And I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. So that's what we did. So most
That's
all
so cool.
sororities who are local into us, so like
Mhm.
Alabama, Auburn, and like Sanford, Troy, Alabama area schools, we have all of their sororities that and it's a licensed product. I always want to make sure people know that. And so there's a bunch of different options, and you could buy digital and physical. There's all these kinds of things, but it is definitely something that I wish I would have had because I think it would help to me. I was also that procrastinating student who waited to the last minute, but if I had a place to organize things, I think I would have done just a little better.
And it's just a sign of the times that kids would want and use the digital version because I have my like planner out here, paper, pen kind of person. My brain is more organized that way, but that's awesome that you have both versions because I'm sure kids are
Oh, and
obviously they're
I
using the
will
digital version.
Yes, and I will give 100% credit to our college students who asked for the digital version because I'm just like you. I was like, "Oh, it's a paper product. It's a hard copy." And they were like, "Well, what about our iPads?" And they had to teach me. I'm not like
Amazing.
I learn from these kids all the time about their electronics and what they do. And so they kind of taught me how to use a note-taking app and I was like, "Oh, this is perfect. Our digital planner will slide right into it."
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's coming out in May of 2024, and I'll make sure I link that up. Is there like a wait list or something that they could sign up
Yes.
for? Okay.
They definitely can. So we can give you drop in the show notes along with our free guide is our
Mhm.
wait list that you can sign up and be the first to know. And so those people on the wait list will have a week prior to everybody else to go ahead and pre-order. And then they'll all ship in mid-May. And then everybody else will be able to order right after that.
That's amazing. Oh, Sarah, I'm so excited. I love all that you are offering this very specific group of people, from the parents of college students to the college students themselves. I think you have a service that is so needed and is really helping just the experience go so much more smoothly.
Yeah, and I will say, I will just plug a little bit to you. We are working on something for the parents because I do know our parents always ask for a little bit extra support in the transition. So even if we don't work with your student, we are working on something just to be able to support you guys as well because it is such a difficult time, and we honor that, and we definitely want to stand in the space for you during that time too.
Yes. Just as a side note for all the parents, make sure you know that like every school at this point has like a parents Facebook page. And when my kids were like freshman year is when I really dove into that the most. I really don't look at it that much anymore because I kind of know the routine. She's a junior now and it's like, okay, I got it. But, make sure you use all of those. You can get emails, you can get into those Facebook groups by class. You can get into them for all the parents of the school. You can get into some athletic things if you're curious, if your school has like a big sporting program that you're interested in. I mean, there's so many resources out there, truly, just within the university or college.
Yes, 100%. And, we are actually in some of those Facebook groups to support parents as well to
Oh,
help answer
smart.
questions and navigate too. And so it's so cool to see how parents support each other because it's such a hard time to navigate for not only the student, but then also the parent as well.
Totally. Well, thank you, Sarah, for sharing all this with us.
Thank you
It
so
was
much for
great
having
to
me
have
back.
you. I know it. Well, we'll have to have you on again the next time you come out with something exciting
Yes, we
for all of
will.
us empty nesters.
We will do it for sure.
All right, Sarah, I got to ask you one more question.
Yes.
Okay, have you started playing pickleball? And because I know that down in Opelika, they have like one of the most amazing pickleball complexes.
I have not. And the reason is because I did something super crazy in January of this year and I actually ran the Dopey Challenge down at Disney, which
Oh, wow.
is a 48.6-mile 4-day race. And so I did not have time to pick up pickleball in the last year. And so that might be on my 2024 to-do list after I start getting myself back to tennis as well. So there's a couple of things that I've got to get back into action with.
Gotcha. Well, you have to go to that complex because it is so cool. It's so nice and it's
Oh, it's
covered and
amazing.
it's amazing. Yeah. All right. Okay, I'll let you off the hook.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, Sarah.
Bye, see ya.